first brush with art came through the form of finger painting. I was really young enough that I can't remember actually doing it. But from the stories I've been told, I was quite hands-on in my creative process. While developing how I explore art, I've learned the power that comes with being hands-on and deliberate. There's a contemporary artist, Yoko Ono. Every choice she makes affects the viewer. Her exhibition helped me understand firsthand how one little detail can change the meaning of a work, can change the viewer's first impression. That first impression can unite. As a student, I found myself continuously drawn to history. From the research process to the analytical aspect, history has allowed me the freedom to explore our past as humans, our successes and errors, our growth and our recession. In particular, I noticed how certain periods of history often go ignored. A period of history I find fascinating is the Mughal dynasty. I was 8 when I first learned about Mughal architecture, specifically the Taj Mahal. I thought it looked cool, like one of the wonders of the world. But it was more about the meaning behind it. The story and love behind it was sweet. Emperor Akbar I's application of story through art reflected how I wanted to treat art. Akbar witnessed his father, Humayun, being attacked by Afghan, Rajput, and Indian sultans, including his own brothers, before seeking asylum in Persia. That influenced Akbar I profoundly, and his goal became to foster religious tolerance and peace after he witnessed the bloodshed of his father's reign. This influenced his approach to leadership, and he became a patron of the arts because he recognized its value as a tool to bring people together. Much of Akbar I's religious tolerance was fostered through art. He valued painting, a medium for which the Mughals remained known for, and he invited many people of religious and ethnic backgrounds to teach one another. He retained Persian master artists from his father's court, like Mir Sayyid Ali and Abd Samad, gave them a formal studio, and asked them to teach Hindu artists their style of Muslim art. By doing this, he took steps to bridge the gaps between Muslims and Hindus. Infusing Hindu culture and Muslim painting styles resulted in what we now know as Mughal painting. These artists painted folios of Hindu and Muslim texts, as well as Christian iconography. Through the town of Fatehpur Sikri, he took Hindu elements and built them into the architecture, creating a house of worship to encourage a dialogue between different faiths. In particular, he featured Hindu iconography of peacocks and geese as ornamental figures, juxtaposing that with the architectural style of Muslim Gujarat, a region he acquired under his rule. Not only did Akbar I preserve his father's legacy and gain the political approval of powerful Hindu groups, he also placed an emphasis on culture, a powerful tool to spread the message of religious tolerance. One of the most fascinating things about Akbar I's engagement with art isn't actually how he used it as a political tool. It's how he experienced art. He was illiterate, but the art form he enjoyed the most was poetry. He took great care to memorize and compose Persian poetry, but he also appointed a court poet for Hindi. This encouraged the language within his court and for his personal entertainment. Even though Akbar I couldn't read, he identified with a written art form and found a way to pursue it. His art might seem distant because of when it was made and where it was made, but all art speaks to its context. It's a dialogue between the artist and what's happening at the time. And it's an invitation to the viewer to join that dialogue. I'd like to share a contemporary artist with you who takes a similar position in creating art. Yoko Ono joined the international art scene in the early 60s, before she met John Lennon, and she's still creating meaningful art. I had the privilege of viewing her work as part of the Growing Freedom exhibition. It carries you from the beginning of her career to the present. Though it might seem easy, sharing your life through your art is deeply vulnerable, and Ono's passion seeped into each piece. You're probably thinking, what does an artist who creates works like mend piece and ceiling painting have in common with an emperor from the 16th century, right? If we look at two of her most famous pieces, War is Over and Bed-ins for Peace, we can see that her work has anti-war overtones that reflect what was going on in society at the time. Just like Akbar, she wanted to see an end to unnecessary bloodshed and promote peace. Western society was embroiled in the ethics of the Vietnam War, and those with pacifist attitudes were battling against the man, or pro-war policies promoted by other groups in the government. Ono unites her viewers with her art by creating interactive art. My personal favorites were Painting to Hammer a Nail and Mend Piece. In Painting to Hammer a Nail, you're asked to take a nail and hammer it into wood that's painted white. The piece started in 1961 and is still going. Numerous nails have been hammered into the wood, each adding a new individual with a different past to the work. Though the people who contribute may never meet each other, everyone experienced this piece and contributed to it in the same way. In a sense, the viewer becomes one with the art, helping Ono create the pieces and bringing the art and the artist closer to the viewer than ever. She used diverse media, so there was lots of ways that everyone could interact with her art. This was impactful for me because I saw the exhibit during the pandemic when everyone was isolated. I found the possibility of contributing to art that had existed before comforting. It gave me a feeling of solidarity and connection with those around me and everyone who contributed before. We created art that existed both within and beyond time. Both Akbar I and Yoko Ono use art as a means to bring people together across ethnic and religious divides, for political reasons or otherwise. While this goes to show the power of art as a tool, I believe that the most important contributions made stem from their search for themselves through art. Akbar I engaged in poetry despite barriers preventing him from doing so. Inadvertently, he created a space for poets of many backgrounds, which was deeply impactful in his pursuit of religious tolerance. Yoko Ono expresses many emotions through her art, exploring her relationship with politics, the conceptual, and John Lennon. She has done so since the beginning and has not faltered even in the face of adversity. These are the types of artists that inspire me. These are the types of individuals that push me to explore what art means to me and where I lie in the realm of art. With so many types of art, both fine and visual, where do I begin to search for my calling? For me, it doesn't need to be about talent or skill, but about joy. I learned the saxophone at the age of 10 because I heard it for the first time and was mesmerized by the sound. I learned pottery because of the experience of molding clay with my hands. I learned how to interpret and create abstract art to express my most difficult emotions when words failed me. Most importantly, I learned how to sew to carry on the art of my grandmothers, and it is the art that I resonate with the most. Art is not an effortless skill. It takes trial and error to find yourself in art. And it is often something that transcends media. All of the media I named are places where I see myself reflected back at me. And as time goes on, I'm sure I'll find new facets of art to explore. Art has been a powerful tool in my life, and its impacts at a personal level have been enormous. Throughout time, political leaders have used art to make their empires flourish, or have stomped it out to avoid uprising. With such an impact, it is important to recognize how deeply rooted art is in our society and to be aware of our intentions when we engage with it. After all, We interact with art every day, from video games to museums. Akbar I explored tolerance and love by making sense of the horrific violence of his father's reign. Yoko Ono explores love, peace, and activism by making sense of the horrific violence of the Vietnam War. For me, art is about exploring emotions. It shouldn't feel like a burden. When I'm creating art, I want to feel a sense of peace, even if what I'm exploring is sad or painful. When I'm sharing my art, I want to feel confident that what I've shared is true to myself. It doesn't have to be about talent or skill or meaning. That can develop along the way. Art is my expression of how I feel.